Have you ever heard the story of the saloon and the family secret? It happened in a dusty little town where the whiskey flowed, and every man thought himself tougher than the next. Behind the bar worked Belle, sharp-tongued, graceful, and just dangerous enough to keep the cowboys guessing. One evening, a young rider named Sam walked through those swinging doors. 25, full of fire, and struck down at once by Belle's smile. But what began as a clumsy crush turned into a wild chase through the desert night, gunfire, jealous rage, and one very angry rancher on their trail. And when the dust settled, the town was left with a tale no one could forget. The cowboy who tried to steal a woman's heart, only to learn she was family all along. Evenings in Red Creek had a rhythm of their own. When the sun slipped behind the hills and shadows stretched across the dusty street, most footsteps led to the saloon. Inside its creaking walls, where glasses clinked, cards slapped felt, and an old piano fought out ragged tunes, life felt softer than under the desert sun. At the center stood Belle. 30, older than many cowhands and drifters, yet her beauty hadn't faded. Tall, dark-haired, eyes that laughed even when her lips were still, she carried herself with confidence. Men straightened when she passed, women sighed quietly, envy hidden behind polite smiles. Belle knew her power. She could lift a man's spirits with a word, spark laughter with a joke, or silence a quarrel with one steady glance. Few women survived among whiskey tempers and wandering hands, but Belle's strength was sharp as a blade. Untouchable, yet endlessly desired. That night, as the air carried hot dust and timber, a stranger stepped inside. His name was Sam, 25, from the south with little more than a horse, a saddlebag, and restless ambition. Youth still softened his face, though the road marked him with grit and scratches. He clutched his hat as if the wind might snatch it away. Sam paused, feigning confidence, but his eyes betrayed him, they locked instantly on Belle. Reckless, consuming love struck at once. He studied her every gesture, how she leaned to pour whiskey, how her laugh rose above the haze, the fleeting brush of her fingers that could haunt a man for weeks. He chose a corner table, heart pounding as if he'd ridden full speed. He barely tasted his beer, every smile Belle gave another man burning in his chest like a brand. As the crowd thinned, drunkards slumped over cards, the piano fell silent. Sam knew it was now or never. He rose, courage trembling in his voice. "Belle, would you care for a walk after your shift?" She looked at him, surprised, then laughed, rich, confident, not cruel but not gentle either. "You're still green, boy," she said, shaking her head. "Women like me aren't for men like you." The words landed heavier than any bullet. Sam flushed, pride stung. He tried to laugh it off, but something inside shifted. What began as admiration turned to a restless fire, one that would soon drive him toward choices far more dangerous than he imagined. Sam left the saloon that night with a storm inside him. The desert air was cool against his face, but his chest burned with humiliation. Belle's laughter, though not meant to be cruel, echoed in his ears with every step down Red Creek's main street. He told himself he was a fool, that he should forget her, but the sting of rejection festered like a fresh wound. He lingered outside, pacing in the shadows between lampposts. From the boardwalk came the sound of boots, laughter, the curses of cowhands staggering home. Sam's hand kept drifting to the brim of his hat, twisting it nervously. Every thought circled back to Belle, the way her eyes caught the lamplight, the curve of her smile when she teased him. She wasn't just another saloon girl, she was a flame, and he was already singed. Hours passed. The saloon's lamps dimmed, the piano ceased, and the last of the rowdy men stumbled into the night. Sam waited, stubborn, as if fate itself demanded it. Then he saw her. Belle stepped into the street, shawl around her shoulders, hair falling in dark waves. She moved with the tired grace of someone who had seen 1,000 nights like this. Sam's breath caught. He had no plan, only the rush of youth and the fire of wounded pride. In his mind, he imagined bold gestures, the kind told in dime novels, the kind that proved a man's seriousness to a woman who doubted him. He thought if he could just show her, she would understand. When Belle turned down the quiet road toward her lodging, Sam's boots carried him after her. She didn't notice until the creak of leather and the sudden snort of a horse announced him. She spun, startled, just as Sam swung into the saddle. "Belle," he blurted, voice trembling with fear and determination. "I won't be laughed at. Come with me, you'll see I mean what I feel." Before she could protest, his hand reached down. In one desperate motion, he pulled her onto the horse. Belle gasped, struggling against him, voice sharp and furious. "Are you mad, boy? Put me down this instant." But Sam pressed his heels into the horse's sides, and it leapt forward, hooves striking sparks from the road. Belle pounded his chest, shouting for him to stop, but adrenaline drowned her words. He told himself this was the only way, that once they were out of town, once she saw how serious he was, she would forgive him. The town's lamps dwindled as the prairie opened, dark and endless. The night air whipped past, carrying Belle's cries and Sam's ragged breaths. He felt her fury, her disbelief, yet he kept going, driven by the notion that this was courage, that this was love. Only when Belle's voice broke through in a raw, desperate shout did his certainty falter. "Sam, stop! You don't understand, I'm married." The word struck harder than any fist. "Married?" His grip slackened, his heart collapsing into dread. He dared a glance at her face. There was no jest in her eyes, no mocking smile. Only truth, sharp as glass. For the first time that night, Sam realized what kind of trouble he had stirred. Belle's husband was no common man. And if word of this madness reached him, Sam's foolish attempt to prove himself could cost him far more than his pride. The horse thundered across the prairie, carrying them farther from town, but Sam no longer felt the thrill of daring. Belle's words circled his head like vultures, "I'm married." Each hoofbeat sounded like a drum of doom, a reminder he had crossed a line no man should. Belle finally stopped struggling. She pulled her shawl tighter, eyes blazing in the moonlight. "You foolish boy," she hissed. "Do you even know who my husband is?" Sam swallowed hard. His throat was dry, bravado shrinking. I don't care," he muttered, though the words felt hollow. Belle's bitter laugh cut through the night. "Don't care? Then you truly are a fool. My husband is Gus McGraw. He owns the biggest ranch this side of the Black Hills. Half the cattlemen owe him wages, the other half owe him favors. You think he won't hear of this? You think he won't come for you?" Sam's stomach dropped. He had heard the name. Everyone in Red Creek had. Gus McGraw was a man of iron, broad as a barn door, with a temper that could set fire to dry grass. Now Sam, idiot Sam, was riding through the dark with Gus's wife clinging to his saddle horn. Belle leaned closer, voice low and urgent. "Turn back now. Drop me off before it's too late. Maybe he'll forgive you for being young and stupid." But pride was a cruel master. Sam couldn't bear crawling back into town, mocked as the boy who tried and failed. His jaw tightened, forcing the horse onward, though doubt gnawed at him. Back in Red Creek, news spread faster than wildfire. A ranch hand burst into Gus McGraw's parlor, stammering out the tale of Belle whisked away. Gus was on his feet before the man had finished, revolver already in hand. "That boy stole my wife," Gus growled. "And I'll see him dead before the sun rises." Within minutes, he had gathered 2 loyal men, hard-bitten riders with rifles across their saddles. They mounted under the pale moon, horses snorting steam in the cool night. Gus's eyes burned like coals as he kicked his mount forward. On the prairie, Sam heard the thunder of hooves before he saw anything. He twisted in the saddle, catching faint shapes on the horizon. His heart seized. They were coming, fast and determined. Belle saw it too. She turned on him with fierce desperation. "Do you see now? You've doomed us both. He thinks I've betrayed him, and he won't stop until your blood is in the dirt." Sam's chest tightened, panic clawing at him. He urged the horse faster, though his hands trembled on the reins. The prairie stretched endless before them, but the pursuit grew louder, closer, more terrifying with every moment. Belle clutched the saddle, hair whipping around her face. "This isn't love, Sam. This is madness. You've got to face what you've done before it's too late. But the only thing Sam could hear was the roar of Gus's wrath gaining on him, each beat of the earth beneath their hooves echoing the terrible consequences of one reckless night. The prairie night came alive with fury. The pounding of hooves echoed like rolling thunder as Gus McGraw and his two riders surged across the dark plain. Sam's horse, though swift, was no match for the seasoned mounts of ranch hands born and bred to outrun storms and cattle alike. Sam leaned low in the saddle, sweat streaming despite the cool night air. Every instinct screamed that he'd made a ruinous mistake. His pride, his foolish attempt to prove himself, had set an entire storm loose upon him. He could almost feel Gus's wrath breathing down his neck. "Sam!" Belle shouted over the rush of wind. "You've got to stop. He'll kill you, don't you see that?" Her words stabbed him, but panic had stolen his reason. He could hear Gus now, bellowing across the open land. "Boy! You think you can steal my wife? I'll hang your hide on the ranch gate." The rage in Gus's voice made Sam's blood run cold. He urged the horse onward, but the beast was tiring, its flanks dark with sweat. Each stride seemed shorter, each gasp louder. Belle, pressed against him, thrashed in desperation. "Let me down. At least if I stand before him, he'll listen. But if you keep running, he'll shoot you dead." Sam couldn't answer. His throat had closed tight. His mind spun between terror and shame, and still he clung to the reins as though speed alone might save him. Behind them, Gus raised his revolver. A gunshot split the night, the crack sharp and merciless. The bullet whistled past, striking dirt near Sam's horse. The animal bolted sideways in fright, nearly throwing both riders. Belle screamed, clutching Sam's arm. "This isn't courage, it's suicide." Another shot rang out, closer this time. Gus roared, standing high in his stirrups. "Face me, you coward! No one runs with what's mine." Sam's heart hammered against his ribs. His vision blurred with fear and exhaustion. He wanted to shout back, to defend himself, to claim he meant no harm, but what words could excuse dragging another man's wife into the night like stolen cattle? Belle, her patience gone, suddenly seized the reins from his hands. With a practiced jerk, she slowed the horse to a stumbling halt. Sam nearly toppled forward, stunned, as dust billowed around them. Within moments, Gus and his men surrounded them, horses snorting, eyes blazing. The moonlight revealed Gus's broad frame, his face twisted with rage, revolver aimed squarely at Sam's chest. "You've got 10 seconds to beg, boy," Gus snarled, his voice low and deadly. "And it won't change a thing." Sam froze. His mouth worked soundlessly, no words forming. His life dangled on the trigger of a furious man, and the weight of his reckless pride crashed down all at once. But before Gus could fire, Belle lifted her voice, strong and clear, cutting through the tension like a whip crack. "Stop, Gus! You don't understand, this boy is no stranger. He's your blood." The words dropped into the night like stones into water, rippling outward. Gus's hand faltered. His men exchanged bewildered glances. Sam blinked, his face flaming with shock. "My, what?" Gus growled, though his gun still trembled in the air. Belle held his gaze, defiant despite the danger. "He's your nephew. The son of your sister, the one who left these parts long ago. That's the truth, Gus. And you're about to shoot your own kin." The prairie went still. Even the horses seemed to sense the sudden shift, stamping and blowing softly. Sam's chest heaved, his mind reeling as he realized the depth of the revelation. And for the first time that night, Gus hesitated, not as a rancher defending his honor, but as a man staring at the face of family he never knew he had. For a long moment, no one spoke. The prairie wind whistled between the riders, carrying dust and horse sweat. Gus's revolver was still raised, but his hand had lost its iron steadiness. The words "he's your nephew" echoed in his mind, louder than his own heartbeat. Sam sat frozen in the saddle, stiff as a post. His face burned with embarrassment, not just for his foolish stunt but for the revelation that struck like a thunderbolt. Nephew? The truth clashed with fear, leaving him red-faced and silent. Belle straightened her shawl, giving Gus a look sharp enough to cut steel. Don't be a fool. Do you remember your sister Margaret, the one who left town 20 years ago? This boy is her son. He's no thief, just young, foolish, and blinded by pride. One of Gus's men shifted uneasily. Boss, she wouldn't lie about a thing like that. Gus's jaw worked as he lowered the revolver inch by inch. Fury dimmed to confusion, then reluctant recognition. Looking closer, he saw what anger had hidden, the familiar brow, the same grey-green eyes Margaret carried when she left. Lord above, Gus muttered. The boy does have her look. Sam swallowed hard, voice trembling. I didn't know. I only came west looking for work, for a place to belong. I never expected, his words tangled into silence. Belle suddenly burst into laughter. It began as a chuckle, then shook her shoulders. Well, she gasped, imagine that. A boy trying to steal off with his own aunt. Funniest thing this town will ever hear. Sam buried his face in his hands, groaning. The humiliation was complete. Even Gus let out a rumble that grew into a booming laugh. The tension broke like a snapped rope. His men joined in, their voices carrying across the prairie. What had been life and death twisted into absurd comedy. Gus holstered his gun and spurred closer, slapping Sam's shoulder so hard it nearly toppled him. Boy, you've got a reckless streak. Takes guts to run off with a woman, and more guts to survive her telling me the truth. If you'd looked closer, you might have seen the family in her eyes before such a damn fool thing. Sam only nodded, cheeks glowing. Belle wiped tears of laughter, still chuckling. Oh, nephew, she teased, next time you want to impress a woman, try flowers instead of kidnapping. As the laughter faded, awkward silence returned. Sam felt smaller than ever, yet relief washed over him. He was alive, spared by the strangest truth. But one thing was certain, by morning, the tale of this wild night would spread like fire through dry brush, and he would never escape its shadow. The prairie settled again, the thunder of hooves fading into the distance as the furious chase turned into an awkward escort. Sam rode between Belle and Gus, his face crimson, shoulders hunched as if shame itself pressed him into the saddle. The night air felt colder now, sharp against his skin. Every step of the horse reminded him of his foolishness. Belle, however, seemed to relish the turn of events. She hummed softly, laughter bubbling up every few minutes. Well, Sam, she teased, you certainly know how to make a first impression. There won't be a soul in Red Creek tomorrow who doesn't know you by name. Sam groaned. I'll be ruined before I've even begun. Ruined? Belle arched a brow, half mocking. On the contrary. You'll be famous. The boy who tried to ride off with his own aunt, that tale will outlive us all. Gus barked a laugh, tinged with disbelief. I've seen men gamble away ranches, lose fortunes at poker, even shoot themselves in the foot trying to act brave. But never in my life have I seen someone saddle up their own kin like stolen goods. He slapped his thigh, shaking his head. Lord, what a night! As the lanterns of Red Creek glimmered ahead, Sam's stomach twisted. He could already imagine the whispers, the smirks, the men who'd clap his back not in respect but in jest. Pride had driven him to folly, and folly would now be his reputation. They rode in silence a while. The streets were mostly empty, though a few late drinkers staggered home. One or two glanced up as the riders passed, curiosity sparking at the sight of Gus McGraw, his wife, and a newcomer at such an odd hour. Belle leaned closer, voice lowered. Hold your head high, boy. Shame lasts only as long as you let it. Better to be laughed at than shot at. Her words, playful yet wise, struck home. Sam nodded faintly, though humiliation still ached in his chest. At the edge of town, Gus slowed his horse, surveying the quiet street. We'll sort this mess in the morning. For now, let's rest. Tomorrow, nephew, you'll learn what it means to face a town's tongue. And believe me, it's sharper than any blade." Sam's heart sank. Gossip in Red Creek spread faster than prairie fire. By sunrise, the tale of his foolish abduction would be on every lip. As they parted ways, Belle to her lodging, Gus to his ranch, Sam to a lonely bunkhouse, Sam felt the weight of a new reality. He had come west searching for a chance to prove himself, to carve out a name. Now he had one, but not the name he wanted. And somewhere behind the shame, a flicker of stubbornness still burned. He would endure the laughter, weather the jokes. One day, Red Creek would remember Sam for more than this night of madness. But first, he had to survive the storm of ridicule awaiting with the dawn. Morning came to Red Creek bright and merciless. The rising sun lit the town in harsh gold, sharpening every plank and hitching post. By the time Sam stepped from the bunkhouse, whispers already rippled through the air. A pair of boys grinned, nudged each other, and ran off laughing. His heart sank, the tale had spread. At the general store, two women spoke low, their eyes flicking toward him. At the blacksmith's, the hammer paused mid-swing as the smith grinned knowingly. Even the preacher gave a solemn nod that felt less like blessing than pity. Red Creek was alive with his shame, and the day had only begun. By late afternoon, it worsened. Cowboys from the ranches rode in for drink, dice, and gossip. Every man who entered the saloon wore the same smirk. Sam tried to avoid it, but Gus insisted he come. "Best face it head on," Gus said with a slap on the back. "A story like this don't fade. Best you laugh along, or you'll be eaten alive." So Sam pushed through the swinging doors, cheeks hot, chest tight. The room erupted at once. Cards slapped, mugs banged, voices rose. There he is, the kid who tried to run off with his aunt. "Careful now, boys, lock up your sisters. Never saw such family loyalty before." Laughter rolled like thunder until Gus's booming laugh joined them. The sound broke the tension. If the man he had wronged most could laugh, perhaps Sam could endure too. Belle stood behind the bar, smile wicked but eyes kind. Resting her elbows on the polished wood, she called, "Well, nephew, how about a drink? On the house, for family." The saloon roared anew. Sam, face aflame, managed a weak smile and tipped his hat. "Much obliged," he muttered, though the words tasted bitter. Belle slid him the glass, her gaze softening for a heartbeat. "Hold your head up, Sam. You'll live this down sooner than you think. And until then," she winked, "at least you've given this town a story it'll never forget." Sam lifted the glass. His pride still burned, yet a strange warmth stirred in his chest. The laughter was cruel, but it bound him into the fabric of Red Creek. He had become part of its legend, if not as he dreamed. As the night wore on, the jokes grew bolder, the tales taller. By the third round, Sam was half bandit, half knight, depending on the teller. Men slapped his back, women teased, and Gus clapped him so hard he nearly choked on his drink. Humiliation lingered, but another feeling crept in, belonging. For the first time since arriving, Sam was no longer invisible. Red Creek knew his name. And though the path was twisted, he had carved a place in the town's memory. The next evening, the saloon was busier than ever. Word of Sam's blunder had traveled faster than the stagecoach, pulling in cowboys, gamblers, and drifters eager to hear the tale firsthand. The piano hammered out a lively tune, laughter shook the walls, and every corner buzzed with the same punchline. Sam pushed through the swinging doors with his hat tugged low, bracing himself. A cheer went up as though he were a prizefighter. Cards slapped tables, and a miner shouted, "Careful, boys! Don't let him near your wives, turns out he likes to keep it in the family." The room erupted. Sam's ears burned, but he forced a crooked smile. He had learned quickly, resisting the joke only made it sharper. Belle leaned across the bar, eyes glinting with mischief. "Well, nephew," she called, "fancy another walk tonight?" The laughter doubled, mugs pounding until froth spilled. Sam groaned, but even he chuckled at the absurdity. Gus entered a moment later, his presence filling the room like a storm cloud. The noise dipped, as though the crowd waited for his gun. But Gus only grinned, clapping Sam so hard he nearly toppled. "This one," Gus roared, "is my nephew. He's got more fire than sense, but his blood, and blood's what counts." He raised his mug. "To family, no matter how foolish." The toast rang through the saloon. Sam raised his too, pride battered thin, but the warmth of laughter and clinking glass seeped in like whiskey. By midnight, the tale had sprouted wings. Some swore Sam had stolen Belle from 3 men, others claimed he'd fought Gus before the truth came out. Every telling grew taller, always ending the same: Sam, the cowboy who tried to steal his own aunt. It stung, but it bound him to Red Creek. He was no longer just a drifter. Children would whisper, drunks would retell, gamblers would wager if he'd ever live it down. As the crowd thinned, Belle caught Sam's eye and winked, mockery and affection mingling. Gus, nursing his last drink, muttered, "With antics like yours, boy, you'll make your mark, one way or another." Sam exhaled, a weary smile tugging at his lips. He had dreamed of carving out a name, though never like this. Still, belonging, even through humiliation, was its own comfort. Outside, the desert night spread star-strewn and vast, as if amused by human folly. And in Red Creek, the legend was sealed, a tale of laughter, family, and one reckless cowboy who gave the town its favorite story for years to come.